you believe me if I told you that India is home to many rare fossils? Fossils of the gigantic 80-ton Bruhathkaiosaurus, the tiny chicken-sized Alwalkeria, and even a dinosaur far more dangerous and stronger than the Tyrannosaurus rex have all been found in India. That being said, it's safe to say that India has been a key player in the evolution of several life forms. This is simply because about 10 million years after the non-avian dinosaurs disappeared, India collided with Eurasia, creating a unique environment where life could flourish. India's position is also very important when it comes to the spread of life forms across Asia, Madagascar, and Africa. For example, the ancestors of the Asian freshwater crabs, Gecarcinusidae, evolved in India before spreading across Southeast Asia. Meanwhile, the frog family Zooglossidae can only be found in India and the Seychelles, showing India's role in the biodiversity of these regions. But here's the big question. With all these rare fossils lying around, why is paleontology, the study of fossils to understand life's evolution, not as popular in India as it is in places like Europe or North America? North America, for example, is famous for its fossil discoveries, especially dinosaur finds that have taken the limelight thanks to museum exhibits, best-selling books, blockbuster movies, and the vast world of the internet. Paleontology is practically a household name there. On the other hand, fossil sites in other parts of the world, including India, haven't received the same attention, even though they are equally scientifically important. For India, this lack of visibility comes down to two main reasons. First, there's India's colonial past. Back then, it was all too common to ship big fossil finds to Europe or North America, where they would be studied and benefit Western science, rather than the local community. A recent study highlighted that even in the past 30 years, 97% of fossil finds in a major database were credited to authors from high or upper middle income countries. Securing funding for research on materials housed abroad is a constant struggle. Plus, physical access to these fossils is very important for paleontology work. While getting back these fossils may seem like a solution on paper, the reality is quite different. Due to the absence of a global consensus or binding rules, researchers abroad are usually pretty tight-fisted when it comes to parting with specimens already in their possession. Now onto reason number 2. India's post-colonial state has failed to recognize the treasure right under its nose, the fossil heritage and the importance of the scientific fields that study it. But let's not forget to look at the big picture here. While the Western world was busy setting up large repositories and museums for their fossil collections, India was dealing with some serious economic oppression. So clearly, museums were the last things on their minds. As a result, researchers find themselves having to make up for lost time, retracing 200 years of missed opportunities before they can produce work of similar quality to their counterparts in the US and Europe. But even with all their efforts, there's also been a lack of support for developing these disciplines. It's quite ironic, especially considering that India is home to the Birbal Sahni Institute of Paleosciences in Lucknow. Established in 1946, it was one of only 2 institutions in the world dedicated specifically to paleobotany, the other being the Paleontological Laboratories at Pennsylvania State University. Even before the term dinosaur was coined, the first fossils were recorded in the UK in 1824 with the discovery of Megalosaurus in Oxfordshire. However, it's a lesser-known fact that the first dinosaur bones from India were discovered shortly after this. In 1828, just 4 years after the UK found its first dinosaur fossils, W.H. Sleeman discovered the first fossils of what would be named Titanosaurus indicus, or the Titanic Indian lizard, in Jabalpur, central India. These fossils changed hands several times before a British man shipped them, along with thousands of other fossils, to England. Fast forward to the early 1900s, and British geologists were busy collecting fossils in India. Today, if you want to see full collections of Indian dinosaurs, you'd have to visit museums in London or New York. In the early 1980s, workers at a cement factory in Balasanur, Gujarat, stumbled upon what they thought were relics from an ancient battle. Paleontologist Dhananjay Mohabbe from the Geological Survey of India in Kolkata recognized them as dinosaur eggs. Mohabbe and his team soon struck gold, uncovering thousands more eggs and many other fossils. In 2010, Jeffrey Wilson from the University of Michigan joined the research and discovered snake bones around a clutch of dinosaur eggs from the Cretaceous period. He and Mohabbe identified the snake as Sanage indicus, revealing the first evidence of snakes preying on dinosaur hatchlings. Since then, Mohabbe and his colleagues have documented 7 dinosaur species that nested in the area. As if that wasn't exciting enough, another jaw-dropping find was made in Balasanur, where researchers unearthed the skeleton of a horned carnivore, Rajasaurus narmadensis, the royal Narmada dinosaur. Sadly, the fossil site soon became a free-for-all for looters, with visitors and even locals ransacking the area. In the 1980s, you could even snag yourself a few dinosaur eggs on the street for just a few pennies. This has had quite an impact, especially on generations of Indian kids. Imagine growing up in India, surrounded by mystery, yet knowing next to nothing about your native dinosaurs. You stroll up to an Indian museum, expecting to meet Rajasaurus, Jainosaurus, or Rahyolosaurus, only to be greeted by Tyrannosaurus rex and Triceratops instead. It's no surprise that most people in India have about as much clue about paleontology as they do about rocket science. Even the little knowledge they have is mostly pieced together from movies like Jurassic Park, where dinosaurs steal the show alongside giant creatures like Godzilla. And here's the tough reality. The future of paleontology in India is hanging by the threads. Access is just the tip of the iceberg for India's paleontologists. Despite sitting on a goldmine of paleontological wonders, Indian officials seem to be snoozing on the job when it comes to supporting this field and often sees it as impractical and obscure. With minimal legal protections, fossil sites are frequently looted or destroyed by development. While funding is tight for all sciences in India, paleontology suffers more than most. There's barely enough cash to dig, collect, or preserve specimens, and the country lacks a national institution dedicated to studying and preserving its natural heritage. Sure, a handful of universities offer paleontology courses, but it's like searching for a needle in a haystack to find a top-notch paleontology center. On top of that, many students steer clear of the field because, let's face it, digging up fossils isn't exactly a walk in the park. There's a wealth of discoveries waiting to be made, but not enough people to make them. If things keep heading in this direction, paleontology in India might just become a tale of the past. Let's head to Himachal Pradesh, where, back in the late 1960s, a joint expedition by Punjab University and Yale University unearthed a treasure trove of humanoid fossils. Among them was the most complete jaw ever found of the gigantic extinct ape, Gigantopithecus. This discovery provided crucial insights into a species previously known only from fragments. Today's paleontologists are itching to explore more at this site, but here's the thing. It's been completely flattened, turned into farmland, with many fossils lost or sold off. Sadly, it's a tale that Indian paleontologists know all too well. Just next door in Rayoli, researchers have stumbled upon something remarkable. Fossils of around 10,000 dinosaur eggs, making it one of the largest known dinosaur hatcheries on the planet. And the excitement doesn't stop there. Significant discoveries keep popping up across the country. In 2017, fossil bones of a Stringosaurus, a horned herbivorous dinosaur, were found in the red mudstone of the Denwa Formation in Madhya Pradesh. The same year saw the discovery of a 152-million-year-old fossil of an ichthyosaur, an extinct marine reptile. And just when you thought things couldn't get any cooler, India revealed the fossil of the oldest plant-eating dinosaur ever discovered. However, the real elephant in the room is government negligence. Despite a chorus of voices pleading to safeguard these sites, officials and lawmakers have opted for the old ostrich approach, burying their heads in the sand. Without robust laws in place, fossil poaching runs rampant with no end in sight. The lack of legal protection for fossils also means that landowners can simply shut down access to sites as they please. One such coveted location is a lignite coal mine in Vastan. This mine has unearthed some of the oldest mammal fossils in South Asia, providing evidence that horses originated on the subcontinent some 54 million years ago before spreading to other parts of the world. The Vastan mine used to be like a modern-day Garden of Eden, teeming with unexpected discoveries waiting to be uncovered. For years, mining officials welcomed researchers to collect fossils at their sites. However, since 2015, access to these mines has been blocked. Some mines have gone even further, destroying precious fossil sites. Take the Babia Hills of Kutch, for example, where lignite mines have carelessly dumped waste rock on important spots for early whale fossils. But the risks don't end once the fossils are excavated and brought to museums. Many researchers are grappling with the question of what to do with their type specimens once they retire. Surprisingly, most would rather not hand them over to the Geological Survey, despite it being the logical choice. The concern is that at the Survey's museum, the specimens would be locked away and inaccessible to future researchers. While the ideal scenario would be to keep these treasures within the country, the current reality forces many fossils to find a home in well-curated museums abroad, where there's a strong research tradition and effective conservation practices. To deal with this, Indian and foreign scientists have been pushing for the establishment of a Smithsonian-style institution, a comprehensive fossil repository. Such an institution would not only serve as an educational hub for the public, but also play a massive role in advancing the field of paleontology in India. Imagine a researcher gets a sample from Vastan, say, an ankle bone of a rabbit. How would they identify it? In countries like France, Germany, and the US, experts have detailed records of every bone from every living animal, allowing for precise comparisons. However, in India, such resources are scarce, causing significant setbacks for scientific research. This is a loss that affects the entire scientific community. Now there's this draft bill that's supposed to head to the Indian Parliament soon, and it has researchers all hot and bothered about the future of their access to some of these incredible treasures, not to mention their conservation and their potential for public education. This bill, in theory, aims to protect India's geological sites and fossils. It gives the central government the power to declare sites of national importance and preserve and maintain them, complete with some hefty penalties for anyone who dares to mess with these places. Of course, most scientists are on board with the idea of increasing legal protection for India's geoheritage. But here's where another problem lies. Many argue that this bill puts way too much power in the hands of the Geological Survey of India, the organization tasked with enforcing the law. Basically, the bill lets GSI call the shots on anything of geological significance, from sediments to rocks to fossils, and even control who gets access to them. As a result, a lot of researchers worry that GSI's newfound monopoly will mean more red tape and less autonomy for researchers, whether they're at universities, research institutes, or private collectors. For this new bill to actually work, there should be a clear and speedy process for researchers to get access to these sites. Plus, there's a wealth of expertise in Indian paleontology scattered across various institutions, so why not take advantage of that? Well, it's certainly very important that the Indian government opens its eyes to see the mistakes it has made so far when it comes to providing support to paleontologists. While it is still uncertain if India will eventually gain the recognition it deserves in the world of fossil mining and research, one thing is for sure, this story is far from over.